So you want to make soap. How exciting. One of the most wonderful things about soap is the simplicity. Now, there are complications that can occur, but if you stick to some very basic procedures, you'll be sure to be a success most of the time. All right, so let's begin. First of all, let's just talk about safety. And this just takes a few moments. There are certainly some more intricate instructions online that you can read about this, but I just want to cover the very basics. Now, one question you might be wondering, why would you want to make your own soap? Well, here's just one example. There is a commonly used product for babies, Johnson Baby Bar. You can go to their website, johnsonbabybar.com, and read all about their products. Now, the FDA has called this product safe, which I believe it is safe. But you may not want these items in your baby soap. If you look, for instance, at some of these ingredients on here, you'll see several of them. Sorry if that's a little blurry. See if I can get it in focus. Yeah, it's not so good at focusing on the screens. I apologize. But you can go to the website and look at it yourself. Again, that's johnsonbabybar.com. Some of the ingredients that are in their soap. Well, the very first one listed there is sodium tallowate. That's cow fat and lye. Anytime you see the word sodium added with a fat, that just means that it has been processed with lye. The next one is sodium cocoa, which is lye and coconut oil, okay, which we're using in our product today. The next one is sodium palm kernel oil. That's lye and palm kernel oil. Next, you'll see glycerin. Now, it doesn't specify if this is vegetable glycerin, if this is a pharmaceutical creation. That's just not listed here because it can be either. And if they don't specify, well, how do you know? Now, I'm sure we could contact them and they could clarify that. So I'm not speaking out against Johnson Baby products. I'm just giving you the information that's freely available on their website. The next item they list is titanium dioxide, which is a naturally occurring oxide from titanium. It's often used as a whitener in soaps, and I've actually used it in some soaps of mine. Not very often, but I do use it. The next product that they list is the, you'll look at it here, the pentasodium, that's a difficult one, pentate. Excuse me for that. I had to look a little closer. The eyes aren't what they used to be. This is a pharmaceutical creation. It's used as a binding agent and used to soften water. So you'd make up your own mind if that's something you want in your soap. The next product that they list is tetrasodium etadronate. That is, again, a product you want to look up on your own. I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but it is used in several products out there. Another one, the final ingredient they list is just parfum, which simply means that it's generally a synthetic fragrance. Okay, so this is baby soap. This isn't sold for adults. So I just wanted to use this as just an example of some of the things that are available out there and why you might want to make your own soap. Get some eye protection. Some simple eye protection like this can save your vision. You're going to be working with some caustic chemicals. When you make soap, all soap is saponified, that means made into soap, using lye. Well, lye is caustic, at least before you've made the soap. Once you've made the soap, it becomes inert. But before you've made it, you need to protect your eyes. So in case you splash any while the process, you certainly don't want to get in your eyes. Very important. The next thing you should have are some gloves. Again, for very much the same reason. You're going to be handling some caustic chemicals, so they can burn. So you want to make sure to protect your hands. I don't always. I've done this for a while. Not to say that I can't make mistakes, and I'm not suggesting that you not wear gloves. You should wear gloves, especially during the early days. Wear some gloves, and anything will work. These happen to be chemical resistant gloves. You can use these. You can use Playtex gloves. You can use just the cheap plastic or vinyl gloves that you get at the store. Pretty much anything that'll keep caustic liquids off your hands. Something else I suggest getting are some simple masks. These little paper masks I got from the dollar store, 10 for $1. And these will help to keep, these won't help with lye fumes. Well, I'll tell you how to avoid those in a few moments. But certainly when you're dealing with any kind of powders, micas, activated carbon, those sort of things, powdered flowers, any of those things that are very lightweight and can get in the air, you don't want to breathe those in. So get yourself some of these. They're cheap, they're easy to use, and they'll help to protect your air passages. Here we have our distilled water. This is water that I simply purchased at my big box store. I'm sure you recognize that label, but you can get it anywhere. I got this for, I believe, 88 cents for 1 gallon. You're going to need lye. This is a very simple product to come by online. Some people suggest buying it in the hardware store, in the plumbing section where the drain cleaners are. The truth is, a lot of that's not pure lye. So you just want to be sure that you're using the right product. You want to make sure when you're making hard soap that you're using sodium hydroxide, not potassium hydroxide. That's for liquid soap. Sodium hydroxide. In this particular recipe, I have 20.7 ounces of water and I have 8.9 ounces of lye. Now, something to just be very clear about, this has been measured by weight, not by liquid ounces. So again, this weighs 20.7 ounces on my scale. The lye weighs 8.9 ounces on the scale. The next step is simply to add the lye to the water. Never add the water to the lye. That can cause the lye to foam over forcefully and get on you and burn you. So you always want to add the lye slowly to the water, not the other way around. I have this in a coffee filter inside another container. You can do it that way. I do it, it just makes cleanup a bit easier, but you choose what works for you. So now I'm just emptying the contents of the lye into the water. And stir. Make sure that you're in a well-ventilated area. I have ventilation here. Make sure that you have ventilation. Vitally important. You don't want to breathe these fumes. Stir it until the water becomes clear. To keep this recipe very simple, there are just 2 oils. I wanted to use oils that you could easily find in your local supermarket. So for this example, we're going to use olive oil, and you can just use the classic. You don't have to use the virgin olive oil. The only difference is that this has been pressed twice, rather than being the first press of olive oil. Now, in most of my soaps that I make, I do use organic, first press, extra virgin olive oil. However, for what I use at home oftentimes, this is just fine. It works great. It has all of the same qualities. The main difference is the color. but we're going to actually modify that, as you'll see in this recipe. And then the other item is coconut oil. This adds great suds to your soap. It does a real great job of cleaning, and these are natural, they're easy to come by products, and they're somewhat inexpensive. For this particular recipe, you'll need about one of these bottles. Now you can get a much larger bottle if you choose. I find that it's actually less expensive to buy them in the smaller bottles at the store that sells this brand. And I'm sure most of you know what store that is. So if you purchase this bottle in this particular size, which is the 25 fluid ounce, you'll need about one of these. You would get two of these bottles, and it'll take one full one, and then about a third of a second bottle. Okay? Now, if you plan on cooking with it, or you already have extra virgin olive oil at home, use that. It works fantastic. I just wanted to give you the most expensive option here. All right. The other item is coconut oil. Again, I generally use organic, but for this, to keep it less expensive, you can get these two of these for about $9, or you can get a single one for $5 to $6. And this will make a couple of different recipes of soap. So if you've got these two items, you've got pretty much all you need to make a very basic bar of soap. Okay, so we're going to move on. Before mixing your lye water with your oil, you're going to need to test the temperature. It's best if they are both at room temperature. Now, there's several different ways of checking that. You can use a stick thermometer such as this with the probe, which you could simply dip into your both your lye water and into your soap. By the way, if you use any of these items, please get one specific for soap making. That way you know it's safe. So anyway, there's this type, which is just a small electronic one. There's not much to it. You turn it on. It is, and most all of these have both Celsius and Fahrenheit. Okay, this one was $5.95 at the local big box store. This is one type. There is a candy thermometer like this. Very simple, not very complicated. Same sort of thing. Now this one's glass, so much easier to clean. Something to keep in mind. The main reason I'm showing you these, I want you to be able to use what you already have at home, because we're going with just basic inexpensive soap making here. Another type is this type of probe that has the dial on top, like this. Okay. The variety I use, and I suggest in time, if you decide to go further in your soap making, to get a laser thermometer. This is fantastic. You simply point it at whatever your item is, and it will give you the temperature of that item. Sorry if I don't know if you can see that or not. So you can see currently that this particular desk is at 65.5. All right. So that's another method. These are anywhere from $10 to $50, really. Look on Amazon. You can find some very inexpensively. Actually, this one I got at, I think, Freight Harbor. There are a lot of different places that sell these kind of things, but it's just another option for you. You don't have to touch anything. There's nothing to clean. So if you have one of these, fantastic. If you don't, in time, you might want to consider one. But any of these will do the same job. Now, what's the purpose of these? Why do you need thermometers? Well, for a couple of different things. For instance, with our olive oil, our coconut oil. Well, we've had to melt it. And what I did is I simply heated the olive oil slightly in like a crock pot. You can do this on a stovetop. Just get it to about 100 degrees, your olive oil, and then you can add in your coconut oil. Take it off the heat, add in your coconut oil, and the coconut oil will dissolve in that oil. Coconut oil has a melting temperature, and if you look right here on the jar, you'll see that it has a melting point of 76 degrees. You can get other coconut oils that actually have a higher temperature that they melt at. But for this example, we're using this. So since we got that oil up to about 100 degrees, we know that coconut oil is going to dissolve in it since it has a lower melting temperature. Then you simply melt that, just swirl it, just stir it until the coconut oil, which is a solid, below 76 degrees. Let me see, I think I've got one already opened here. Let me check. The one that I used in this example, there you go. So you can see it's a semi-solid. So you need to melt that. And the way I do that is, like I said, heat the olive oil, then add the coconut oil. Now all we have to do is add the lye water to the oils. Terrific. So now I have my oils and my lye water at the same temperature, within 5 degrees. So now what I'm going to do is add the lye water to the oils, which have already been melted and mixed. Now, one of the things that I suggest is that you pour your lye water over something else to keep it from splashing, and also to help prevent anything from, to try to reduce air bubbles. So you'll see a lot of little bubbles here on top. If you simply pound down like this, it will break up many of these bubbles. The ones that don't, you can touch and break. You just don't want bubbles in your final soap. They add little holes in your soap, and it's just not very attractive. And since it's such an easy thing to get rid of them, just a bit, go ahead and do that. It's not that big a deal. So now what we can do is, now you can combine your oils and lye in many different ways. Some folks use a whisk. Some use a spatula of some type. One of the tools that many soapers have purchased is an immersion blender. The first one that I had, which lasted me quite a while, I bought at that same big box store in town where a lot of you may buy items, and I spent under $20 for it. This one was a bit more because I've gone through a few of those others, but you can get them rather inexpensive. You don't have to have this to make soap. It just speeds up the process of bringing your soap to trace, and I'm going to explain what that means in just a moment. All right, so when you put your blender in, because it's a cup shape, it's trapping water or trapping air. So if you just tilt it, you can let out any of those air bubbles that may be trapped. You can also tap it on the bottom to achieve the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. I'm going to just give this a little bit of a buzz here. So I'm going to stop for a bit and just stir. Now you may see some white streaks. Sometimes what that is are the coconut oil solids that the lye is reacting to. Nothing to be concerned about. Just continue mixing. Now I'm not going to mix this too much because we're going to add a little bit of color to this. But we're going to color it with some natural products you have at home, most likely. If not, well, there's something you can consider. So without even making any purchases, if you have this at home, one of the items is just cocoa from the store. This is some that I had a long time, but it's really great for coloring soap, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And another item is simple tea. That's right, just tea. Tea makes fantastic colorant for turning your soap green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn some of this brown and some of this green. So let me show you. So in this container, I'm going to measure out 2 teaspoons of just cocoa. There's 1, and there's 2. You can use less, you can use more. Really depends on how dark you want that part of your soap. In this one, I'm going to color it with some just plain old tea. So I'm just tearing open the bag. This is just green tea. And I think I'm just going to use, I'm going to use both bags. Make sure we get some color here. I use tea a lot. There are other colorants certainly that there are a myriad of products out there that you can purchase for use in soap. I happen to like these. These are simple, they're easy to come by. And again, this is about making an inexpensive soap that you yourself can make at home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour equal amounts of our soap that I've already made here into each of these. Now I have one of these little milk frothers. You can use a simple whisk in this. This is something that I got. I think it was $5.99 online at Amazon. So that's it. Not much to it. It's made for milk frothing, but it has these other attachments too. So it's great for this kind of thing, just for doing some little mixing. So I'm going to mix in this cocoa into this bit of soap here. So you can see that's now turned a nice chocolate brown. This is not going to have any fragrance in it, this soap, because again, we're making something very basic and simple. You don't have to add either of these items, by the way. I'm doing this just to show you how it can be done on a budget, but you don't have to use any colorants in it. Okay, this is the tea. So you'll see that this has tinted this just a sort of a mild green. As the tea absorbs the soap and vice versa, it will turn a little bit darker. And you're going to see these specks from the tea leaves in your soap. Some people really like that. I'm one who does. It makes a nice gentle exfoliant in your soap and just gives it some interest. It's pretty to look at and it feels good on the skin. Okay. So both of those are mixed. So now we're going to talk about the mold that we're going to put all of this soap into and how this is going to work. Again, today the subject is budget homemaking, soap making at home. So one very easy thing that you can do is use an old shipping box like this. This was something that I received in the mail. It's a nice little size box. But you have to line it with something before you pour your soap in it, otherwise your soap's going to leak out through all those holes, right? There are a lot of different options available, but one of the easiest is something as simple as a shopping bag. You then can just pour your soap in here. Then the next day, you simply pull the bag out with your finished soap and cut your soap. Very easy to do. There really isn't anything much simpler than that. Make sure your sack doesn't have any holes in it or anything that the soap can leak out. You can line it with, some people use different kind of butcher paper. They use shipping paper. Just whatever you have that you can use to line it with is fantastic. But this is just a cheap, really easy way. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. For my particular example, I'm using a round mold. What this is just a piece of PVC pipe, just a very inexpensive PVC pipe. I actually had some of this at home from a plumbing project, so just cut off 24 inches of it. On the bottom, I have covered it with duct tape just to seal one end of it. And then inside I put a liner. And what the liner is a simple plastic cutting board, which you can purchase. I got these 3 for $1 at the Dollar Tree store. And all you do is you put it in a, turn in a circle, and then push it down inside your pipe. 1 second here. It's hard for me to do this with one hand. There we go. And you just push it down inside. And now you have a lined soap. So then tomorrow, after I pour the soap, what I'll do is pull this off and push the soap through. And it'll just slide right out the other end, which you'll see at the end of this video. So, what I'm going to do now is begin pouring my soaps in the mold. So let me zoom out a bit, make it a little easier for you to see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to start by pouring a bit of this base soap in. So I'm pouring in about half of what's in the container here. Then I'm going to take my colors. Okay, I've got my green and my brown, and I'm just going to pour them in. I'm going to just pour them in like so. Then I'm going to stop. And I'm going to pour a bit more from the original mix here and bring it all the way to the top. Hi everyone, so this is the unmolding process here. So what I'm simply doing is shaking it out from the bottom. And there it is. And there's our soap. So what I'm going to do now is to just let this cure for just a few more days before I cut it. So I was the impatient soaper, and I cut these before they were ready. I still think they look great, or they're a little messy. But I can smooth these out. I'll let them just continue to cure for about 4 to 6 weeks and clean them up, and they will look terrific. And they will darken a bit too, so they're going to look kind of like tree branches, which is something I like about just doing this simple swirl method, pouring it in like that. So this is it. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. If you have any comments, leave those too. Thanks so much. Have a great day.